Pre-game show. Do not have many things to show and tell physically because this fella right here has been my companion. This is my Kindle from way back when. You can even see it's got the manual buttons and everything. Back when folks were very critical of this design, and now I am super glad to have it because there is nothing dearer to my heart when it comes to reading by minimizing the amount of digitality of an object and making it as analog as possible. I find it impossible to read ebooks cleanly on an iPad or something that's backlit. Something like this is fantastic. You can see it's got old snake wrangler there. This is what I'm going to call him. Who is this? It's not Orion. That is. Can I read it? That is Ophiuchus. Maybe that's Hercules, because I see the word Hercules on here too, and that seems to probably be more Herculean. And yes, the buttons do add to the gadget factor. Good evening, Phoenicia. It's good to see you. And yeah, so there's a Humble Bundle up with a bunch of Japanese culture stuff, which some of it's very anime and manga focused, and sort of like sociological, anthropological studies of pop media, which is less my interest, and more there are books on aesthetics by Donald Richie, who is one of the foremost historians of sort of like Japanese cinema, which anybody following the stream knows that has been an interest of mine for the past year, almost to the day. And there are 4 books of his up there, probably about $60 value all combined, and for $18 you can get the whole lot. And yeah, so those ebooks live here, and I'm very happy with it. Also, this the old Kindle has a special little notepad in the back that has all of your notes isolated in one single place that you can go to, and that makes me very happy because it stops me from having to hunt down every single thing that I underlined if I want to go into a file on my computer or something, mark it down, which I do from time to time, because why wouldn't you catalog the lines that you liked? And yeah, so I'm reading his tractate on Japanese aesthetics, where he goes into many of the words that have entered into common parlance, wabi-sabi, aware, and things like that, which have a kind of a conventional meaning, and then he sort of goes into the history of how that has come about and why we understand it a certain way, how it has been understood, and it's almost kind of an ethnography of words that have become loan words. And that's very interesting to me from a sociolinguistic point of view. Excuse me. And here's the light. No backlighting, top lighting. This guy right here. So yeah, and movie-wise this week, picked up Retaliation, which is a Joe Shishido movie, and that is supposed to be kind of, if not a literal, then a spiritual sequel to Massacre Gun, which has a scene that I'm going to look at here today as part of the pregame show. And also, what is it? Oh, I forget the name of it. Anyway, it's a 1999 movie that's got Nakadai in it, and I'm very pleased to see that because I'm very interested to see the kind of roles that he takes when he's sort of past his, Chanbara prime. And yeah, it's a Region 3 DVD, so I had to rent like an extra player to be able to watch it, and that's always cool and makes you feel like you're doing something. But yeah, so I passed on this last time because I forgot to set this up. But so, one of the things that I'm really enjoying about sort of Japanese cinema as I'm coming to understand it through Richie is the way that visual form tells the story as much as plotting and dialogue and acting. And there was one scene from Massacre Gun that I felt did a really good job of this, so we're just going to pull that up here. Let's go back. There we go. So, yeah, so this is, just to kind of give you the context of the setup here, this guy that you see on the right, his name is Hideaki Natani. Hideaki Natani? Anyway, Natani, I do know that part is, that part of his name. But yeah, Natani is, he's a gangster, he's part of the family, he's on the side of the family, and Joe, who we're going to see in the next scene, formerly part of the family, is now rebelling against them. So that's the basic setup of their relationship. They are brothers. This is a dynamic that is as old as black and white cinema and still continues to exist in a lot of games and stuff like that today. But so yeah, so he is going to Joe's club to try to talk him into coming back to the family trying to get him to stop his war against the boss. And so here he is. This isn't the scene in question. This is just an introduction to who he is, what he looks like, and where he is. So yeah, he's coming into Joe's bar to try to get Joe to come back to the family. And this is where there's a sort of visual vocabulary that this scene builds up that is just fantastic. Right here, from the very start, you've got the vertical lines, you have the slouched shoulder, you have that 45-degree decline in angle from shoulders to top of the head, and the sort of skeptical look over the shoulder. This posture and this background orientation of lines, this language carries the whole scene. So then, Joe, Nitani comes in. Joe's like, "What?" Yes, being aesthetic, that is absolutely right. I agree. As a matter of fact, on one of the DVD supplements, I don't remember where, he actually speaks specifically about physical beauty and some of his interest in seeing aesthetics as physical beauty, and since apparently grew out of that in his later years. But I think that's on point. So here he is looking over. You have the shoulder, the angle, the lines, and then moving into the next scene, you have this really great breakup of space. This sort of breakup of social space of Joe. You see him, his head down, and this is actually a really interesting posture. Yeah, this is hangout time. We got a few more minutes of this. This is really interesting because Joe is the one rebelling, right? And this is a very interesting physical characterization, because typically the rebel is the person with his head held high. He's a chivalric figure. He's the person standing up against the corruption, etc., etc. The whole noble thing. But his posture is one of shame. Oh, awesome. Well, thank you, Swimmy. It's great to see you, and I'm glad that it feels that way. Evening, Iceman Dan. Yeah, looking very solemn. And so if you look at Nitani's posture there, in the middle though, he's got the square shoulders straight up and down. Even the necktie emphasizes the verticality of his posture. So you've got this really great breakup. You can kind of see on the edge of the screen how the lens is sort of bending around. It's very important that they catch these guys in this, that is balanced just so. And as they start to move around the scene, that sort of the relationships there of former brother, who's Nitani, who is there on the left, and then apprehensive new brother in the back, and then you have Joe, and so there's this sort of orbiting that happens around, but always this perfect breakup of space between the three individuals to kind of convey the three different parties that are involved. And so now this contrast between the declined posture and the upright posture. Like this is, let's see, from your angle, it looks like, I'm trying to look at, how does it look on the camera? Like that? Yeah, there we go. So you have this here, right? So Nitani is looking up, Joe's looking down, They don't want to fight each other. They're trying to resolve their differences, and they're not succeeding. And then it cuts around to the other angle, and it just like both sides are experiencing the same frustration here, and that's communicated by these back-to-back shots with each one of them in the other's position. Except now you see Nitani starting to sort of decline his head. He's sort of entering into, basically Joe is in the depressing reality that their rift is not healable. And Nitani's starting to get there too. And then you have this moment where they see each other. They recognize each other through the lens of this new relationship, and it does such a great job of like, again, kind of like in the same way that you have this parallel framing. Let's see. You have this parallel framing here. The next moment is also parallel framing because you have Nitani and Joe almost identically placed with the same expression, same posture and everything. And then you get to this next scene, which visually is just fantastic and conveys so much. If you look at the way the vertical and the horizontal lines are just sort of like compose this scene, and look at where Nitani is placed. It's like Nitani's figure is perfectly in the middle of this visual tension in the room, and this like visually conveys so much about their relationship because you have everything uniform, everything visually coherent, except this one figure that just sort of radiates this almost like corona of tension. And better if we'd been enemies from the beginning. That's where this is ending up, and the visual form of this scene communicates the relationship, and I think that's brilliant. And then Nitani advances, friendship is over, steps out of frame and he leaves. And this is where that sort of posture, that 45-degree declined head posture, comes back in. Natani's posture is no longer straight up. It's slumped down. And it's joining that sort of language of transition of what their relationship is. And it's communicating that visually with all these lovely angles, 45 degrees, vertical, horizontal. And then, I know there's no going back. And then all of that composition is just sort of wiped away with this guy who is really enthusiastic about the New Order and has like no skin in that relationship, and is just super happy about it. So anyway, that is an example of sort of like where the visual form is telling the story, and the storytelling is really not afraid to be wear that much on the sleeve, and I admire that. It's I think a way to sort of look at that is, and this actually relates to the way Kitamura does Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. What you're seeing there is style used as substance. Style and so you have a spectrum of ways that this manifests. That's one way, style and form. Another way to express style is form. Form and style is substance, and then in Kitamura, it's entirely substance, right? It's about the heel plant off the rocket. It's about the Deadeye, the James Bond view through the barrel of Raven in the tank. It's on the same sort of spectrum of ways of telling a story. And with that in mind, we can jump on into Twin Snakes and see how that story is told through these fantastic directions.